Shalom, welcome to the Jewish View. My name is Rabbi Nachman Simon with the Chabados of Delmer, together with my co-host Mark Kronich of Statewide News Service and jbiztechvalley.com. We have a very, very special guest with us, Mr. Chris Hawver. How you doing? You're the Executive Director of the Commission of the Albany Pine Bush.
That's right.
Did I get it right?
You got it right.
It's a long title, but all right.
Thank you, Rabbi. Nice to be here. Thank you, Mark.
Okay, well, it's good
Tell
to
us
have you
about
here.
the Pine Bush.
Sure. The Albany Pine Bush is it's a globally rare habitat, and it's called pine barrens. So it's an inland pine barrens.
Explain what that is.
So
You're talking to an ignoramus. I'm a rabbi and
Well,
not a
first of all, it's
biologist.
3,200 acres of protected land.
Right. So the preserve itself, it's a 3,200 acre nature preserve. It's right on the border of Albany with Schenectady. It spans through Albany County, Gilliland.
Down to the landfill.
Down to the landfill. It's adjacent to the landfill. You see it when you drive through on the thruway. But it was set up to protect this habitat. This pine barrens, you've heard of the New Jersey pine barrens? You have now.
You start from the beginning.
Well, you have now, yeah.
There's the New Jersey pine lands. That's a pine barrens. It's a habitat where you have rare plants and animals that come together and they function in this ecosystem, and it's something that's one of the most rare habitats in the Northeast.
I didn't know that. I go by there, and to me, I see a bunch of trees, and
Well,
I didn't know it was that special.
Before you came to Albany, there was something called there was no Crossgates Mall. And when they were going to be building Crossgates Mall, I was in college. And there was this whole big thing of save the Corner blue butterfly.
Right.
And that's one of the rare species that's in the pine bush. But the Corner blue butterfly, it was once thought to be the only place was in the pine bush, but then they found out that it's in like Kentucky or Virginia or someplace down south, and they said, oh, the Pyramid Corporation said, we don't have to protect it as much. So they went ahead and they bulldozed whatever they had to bulldoze, and now we have Crossgates Mall.
Part of the pine bush?
Yep.
I mean, where the Crossgates,
Yep.
but they just bulldozed it up.
Yep. Well, SUNY Albany, where SUNY Albany is, the Harriman campus, it was all pine bush. Pine bush is 3,200 acres today in preserve, but it used to be 60,000.
Really?
Historically.
But it was a golf course where SUNY Albany is. It was the Albany Golf Course.
Before that, it was
even
the pine
before
bush.
that,
Well,
before it was pine bush. So Corning.
400 or 500 years ago.
Okay, well,
it was pine bush.
before my time.
Me too. A little bit.
You don't remember that, Mark? That's good. Well, I know there's a lot of Jewish cemeteries around that area also.
Yeah, but they're not that old either.
No, but they must have been knocking down certain things.
Well, on Western Avenue there, on the other side of Crow, there's the Jewish cemeteries. But
On Fuller. Well,
no, on Fuller
and
also
and Western,
yeah.
right. Going right.
We kind of surround the...
That's right.
Go back to what makes it so special. I mean, again, talk to me. Maybe a lot of viewers know more than me. Maybe they know less.
Sure.
What makes it so special? I mean, to me, it's you see a tree, a bunch of trees, so it's a forest preserve, and you're saying it's very unique.
Some trees are more rare than others. Some plants are more rare than others, and the animals that are there depend on those plants. And so you have a habitat that's, I guess what you would call just less common. A lot of the forests that you see are common. The plants and animals there are common. The plants and animals of the pine bush are not common. In Long Island, in Suffolk County, you have pine barrens too. Same type of thing. Very rare habitat. So because it's rare, it's easily threatened. Threatened primarily through development, through loss. So that's one of the things that we do is try to protect the land to promote the habitat.
Now, I just know because I live in Bethlehem myself, the Five Rivers, is that connected to it, or it's a separate?
No, Five Rivers it's an open space area. Their primary goal is recreation and education. That's our secondary goal. So our primary goal is to protect this habitat, but we also do a lot of recreation and educational programs. We have 18 miles of trails in the preserve. We have this nature center. So it's kind of a twofold thing.
Well, when someone wants to go there, you see the trails. I mean, there are tours. I mean, tour guides or whatever they would be, forest preserve rangers.
Yeah, if you're on Route 155, they have an entrance to the trail where you have a book you have to sign in, and then you could walk through the trails.
Yeah, but it's maybe a tour. Well, again, a person like me, I'd walk through there. I'd see a tree, and I wouldn't know what I'm doing.
But it's peaceful, and you unwind, and you just learn to absorb nature inside of you, and you connect with your inner soul.
See, like you said, maybe you have to bring your wife.
Yeah, that's it. My wife's very much more nature-minded than I am.
Well, that's one of the
book-minded, and she's more nature.
That's why we have this Discovery Center, which is it's a nature center, it's an interpretive education center, it's the former CEFCU building on 155. So we rehab this building and turn it into a nature center. And the whole idea is for people like yourself, if you're not familiar with it, you come there. That's the front door. You come in, you come to the Discovery Center. There's people there that can talk to you.
Exactly?
Well, let's make a trip. We take everyone from the Del Mar Chabad from Albany, and we can go over and we can all get lost in the Pine Barrens and let Chris find us.
But where is the CEFCU building exactly?
It's on 155.
People want to find it.
What's the street across the street? What's the
Old State Road.
At the Old State Road.
Old State Road. So the Discovery Center is on 155 across from Old State Road, and it's basically between Washington Avenue Extension and Central Avenue.
Right.
All right.
And you can't miss it. I mean, there's a traffic. It's like one of the only traffic lights on that road. So
Right.
You
And we have a sign out front.
You do. Yes, you do.
With
Now, this commission is made up of people. It's just not called the Pine Preserve Commission, Pine Bush Preserve Commission.
No, I break it down three ways. So there's the Albany Pine Bush. That's the habitat.
Right.
There's the Albany Pine Bush Preserve, which was set up to protect the habitat, and then there's the Albany Pine Bush Preserve Commission, which was set up to oversee and manage the preserve.
Now, it looks like mainly political folks are on there. Kathy Sheehan, Paula Mahan, Ken Runyon, Dan McCoy, and then you got Gene Kelly from DEC, Rose Harvey, a state commissioner for Parks and Recreation.
Right.
I mean, it just doesn't, I mean, you have a couple of people from the community and you have one citizen member, but it looks like it's, do these political elected officials actually show up, or do they send a representative?
Some of them do. Most of them have a representative that are designated that focus, that work with us more.
Well, we on your website, you should put who, if they have a representative, who is that contact?
That's probably a good idea.
Within each of the
governmental
agencies.
They're on there because they're in by statute.
That's right.
We were set up by statute, and
but there's a practicality to it also.
Right.
So I think that maybe that could be more interactive with the public also.
Yeah.
So that they don't, but if Kathy, Mayor Sheehan from Albany is not going to be directly at the meeting, and she sends someone to go up to Kathy Sheehan and complain to her or compliment her about the pine bush, isn't going to help, because you got to talk to the person who's actually hands-on.
Well, actually, that's a good example. You could do that with the mayor, and she would interact with you, and you'd get the same thing out of
the town
Paula
supervisors.
Mahan. You would.
Okay. Do they actually show up at the meetings? Or
sometimes they do.
Sometimes when it's important, when it's a big issue, or
or
just to be curious and just to sit in.
No, I wouldn't say that. It kind of depends on their schedules.
Yeah.
But they're active. I mean, they pay attention. They know what goes on.
Okay.
The same goes for Ken Runyon.
Yeah.
The
Guilderland Town Supervisor.
Right.
This is under Albany County. It's a county commission.
No, it's a state commission.
State.
Really?
It's a state commission. So, for example, you have those people. So, for example, the town supervisor for Colony.
Right.
She's on there because Paula Mahan is on the board because statute requires the supervisor of Colony to be on the board.
Because part of the Pine Bush is in Colony, part of the Pine Bush is Guilderland, and part of it's the city of Albany.
Right.
So that's why you have the top elected officials from those entities in there. And then you have Dan McCoy on there as the Albany County Executive.
Yep.
Because Dan McCoy is, because Dan McCoy is the county executive, and the landfill, but also the Pine Bush is all within the county auspices.
That's right. That's right.
So when the landfill stops growing, and we presume that's going to happen, are you going to put up some sort of barrier, like noise barrier or something, where it's not an eyesore and it could really be kept away from when you're hiking inside the pine bush?
Well, part of the project now that's under their current permit, the city's permit, is they're doing test plots on the landfill to grow native plants on it. So the idea is to restore the capped landfill with native pine bush plants. So you're going to see this massive hill, but covered with pine bush plants.
So we're going to be able to walk on.
The idea is
walk up the landfill.
Is when it's capped and closed to get onto the top of that landfill, and the view's great.
The view is great.
Oh, it's fantastic. You can see the Green Mountains. You can see the Catskills.
Don't tell me you've been there.
To the top of the landfill?
Yeah.
Sure.
You've walked up to the, hopefully not in your good clothes.
No, not with my good clothes. No, I've been up there with the commissioner from DEC because we actually went there to see some of the work that the city's doing for these test plots.
Okay, so when is it supposed to be capped?
I
Allegedly.
think they haven't opened the current new cell, the last one.
Oh,
So that opened sometime, I'm guessing, I believe in 2014. So
this year.
this year, so it probably will go for another 7 to 10 years.
That long?
I believe so.
Oh, wow.
You'd have to ask the
Isn't
city
it
for
when
I
sure.
you
will.
say when
I will.
we
That's
go
one of the
up
questions
there.
I'll have for
Yeah.
Kathy Sheehan.
Sure.
One of the, I just, again, don't know that much, but they say that there, I've seen landfills and they're like methane gas and they're blowing, I mean, it's an unsafe place.
Well, they have
Isn't it?
they have a methane collection system. I do know that, and they use that and they burn it and they create electricity. They develop electricity and they
Really?
sell it back to the grid.
So they can make a little bit of money,
Yeah.
something.
Right. Well, and not just making money. You're collecting instead of flaring off gas and
Right.
adding it to, or just
The
letting
air,
it escape.
yeah, right.
Adding to climate change. Then you have.
So
you're
what's
actually
your,
using it.
what's your favorite part of the Pine Bush? Because I'm presuming you already hiked through every part of this 2,300 acre site.
3,200 acres.
32 acre, okay.
I started in the Pine Bush in March of 1993, so I've been there for almost 21 years.
Right.
So I started as an intern, an 8-week intern, and they can't get rid of me apparently. So I would say my favorite part of the Pine Bush is the area that's between Willow Street, off of Western Avenue,
Yep.
and 155, where there's all these deep ravines, and it's very quiet, it's very peaceful, it's very nice.
Okay.
That's
Well,
my favorite
that's
spot.
good. Yeah, I know Willow Street because the former town supervisor of Gildan, Jerry Yerberry, used to live
Yep.
on Willow.
Yep, I think he
So-
still does.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
So anyway, so you go right off to the end of Willow, and
Yep.
then that's the Pine Bush.
Yep, there's a trailhead there, there's parking there.
Okay.
I was actually out in the preserve on Monday for President's Day, and I was telling Rabbi before we started
Yeah.
that I took my mother snowshoeing for her first time. She's asked me to take her snowshoeing, so I took her snowshoeing.
Okay.
She had a
Well,
great time.
must
You
be a
don't
young
rent
woman.
anything there, it's not that commercialized. I mean,
No,
you know,
we do have, we have snowshoes, but we don't rent them, so we have programs. So for example, we had a program today for
Yeah.
kids, and part of it was snowshoeing. So it's $3 a person or $5 for a whole family, and you get snowshoes.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah,
perfect.
yeah.
That's perfect for the Chabad. That you can
Yeah, no.
certainly.
You get me excited to want to go there. I really, again, I've been here for a number of years, and I just, I've gone by there. I know Pine Bush. This is all right. It's a forest preserve, a bunch of trees, but because
Yeah.
I go like a lot to the Five Rivers with the kids. But now you get me excited. It's
Yeah,
something
there
to
you go.
to
Now
already.
let me ask you
Sure.
about the Karna blue butterfly.
Yep.
How's it doing?
How's it doing?
How's it doing?
I would say
Take a test.
it's doing better than ever
Okay. So-
in the Pine Bush.
Right.
And it's mainly because of the habitat work that we've been doing.
So they haven't been wiped out by crossgates.
No.
Okay, because that was
That was a
what
big issue.
Don Reeb and all the others were screaming about back then.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Crossgates opened in 1984.
3, 4,
3,
5,
4,
yeah,
something like that.
Yeah. So-
No, a lot of the work that we do is we cut down trees and we restore this open habitat. That's what the butterflies,
You deliberately want to cut down the trees?
Oh yeah, sure. It's
Why?
restoration. of the
because these
forest.
trees have grown up over time
Yeah.
and it's not part of the natural habitat.
That's interesting.
So we're creating
New growth.
new habitat.
Yeah.
It's like an open shrubland. So most people think you see a forest, and that's the most important thing. But there's birds and mammals and all kinds of things that depend on shrubland habitat, grasslands.
What else
all
would we
those things.
find in the Pine Bush if we went there? What other
Animals?
Deer, probably.
Oh yeah, deer, coyotes, gray fox, red fox, sometimes the occasional bear.
Okay.
What else would we have? Chipmunks, red squirrels, gray squirrels, lots of birds.
Lots of
It's a
birds.
big birding area. A lot of people who are big birding enthusiasts
Yeah.
come to the Pine Bush. But going back to the Karna Blue,
Yeah.
so probably one of the interesting things that we do is we work with the state of New Hampshire, the Fish and Game Department, and we captively raise Karna Blues. So we go out working with Fish and Wildlife, the feds, and the state, and we capture pregnant females, little tiny butterflies, and we put them in a container, and we take them to New Hampshire, and they have a special unit, these specialists, that the females lay their eggs, they hatch them out, and we bring them back, and it's called accelerated colonization. It's a big buzz in conservation biology.
Excellent.
So
I'm
it
so
works.
happy to see that. I really am. I mean, I was,
Yeah.
I was just graduating from Albany and then transitioning into having my news service at the time. And
Yeah.
this was a big story. If you always remember your first big ones.
Oh, yeah.
And and this was one of those times that. I really felt badly for the corn blues that they were going to be.
Well,
like, everyone was screaming, they're going to be wiped out, and
Yeah.
I'm so glad to see 20 some odd years later.
How
that-
many birds can you
30 years
estimate that? I know sometimes they say they estimate how many animals. I don't say how they can.
How many birds,
do
like,
that.
as
yeah,
in,
well,
how
the
many,
Carner birds, like you say,
Species of birds.
how many species of birds?
species of birds and how many altogether, maybe?
How many altogether, I couldn't
Yeah,
guess.
yeah.
How many species? I would guess probably 60 or 80
Really?
would
What's the
guess.
biggest danger now for the pine bush?
for the pine bush. Probably the biggest threat continues to be fragmentation. That's a buzzword in conservation
tell me
biology.
what that means.
Fragmentation is basically you take habitat and you cut it into pieces. So you either lose a piece of property or a piece of habitat to development, or a roadway, or even inappropriate trail use. People come in and they create new trails, and that impacts. That's probably
Okay.
the biggest issue we deal with.
But you can stop people from developing in the pine bush.
No, we can't.
Yes, I was
Explain.
going
Wait
to
a
ask.
minute,
I
wait a
mean,
minute.
that's what I was going to
Yeah,
say. That
explain. How come?
3,200 acres.
So
Is that solid now, or
That 3,200 acres is protected preserve, so people can't develop that.
Right.
But there's an additional 3,000 acres.
Oh.
I mean, the commission, the idea is to have a preserve of almost 5,400 acres with a whole protection plan that we have. So that's owned by private people.
Oh.
So if those people want to develop that for example, if we want to buy your property and you say, I don't want to sell it to you, or you say, I don't want to sell it to you,
and it's bordering the
Right.
Yeah, it's
Right.
bordering right on there.
you have that right to develop that property.
Uh-huh.
Or if we don't have the money to be able to buy it.
Now, presumably, you have, these people who are living on the pine bush or on the edge of the pine bush, or, have the property within the pine bush.
Yeah.
They're there because they respect the land, because they respect, they're
For the most part, that's
the wild
that's the
and the
truth.
habitat. Yeah.
People. I mean, if you look at real estate guides today, where there's a house that backs up to the preserve, it's a marketing tool for them, because people want to live. They want to live where their backyard is, as they call it, forever wild.
Yeah.
I don't know, Mark. I know people in Voorheesville and they're, and outside the city limits, and people just love the view, so they'll just make a house right on the mountain. And the neighbors are, the people are telling me, they love the view so much they decided to destroy it. I'm just saying people love it. Oh, therefore I love this place. I'm going to build a massive house. And
Right.
so, you love it, but you destroyed it at the same time.
Well, they're not seeing it from the other side. They're seeing it from their point of view. It's beautiful, but the other people looking the other way
that's what I'm
don't
saying.
find it beautiful because they think it's
Right.
destroying
That's what I'm
it.
saying.
It's all perspective.
You have it with cell phone towers.
Right.
And frankenpines.
Right.
Any
Right.
frankenpines in the pine bush?
No frankenpines in the pine bush. You see
Can't
that?
use your cell phone. That'll be serene over here. Now I know it'll be serene. Let's turn that
So,
off.
so what's your budget like at the Pine Bush?
What's our budget like?
Yeah.
Our operating budget's about 2.8 million.
Really?
Of that, of the 2.8 million, 2 million comes from the Environmental Protection Fund annually. Let's see.
Now, you like that check when that comes.
It doesn't come in one chunk. We have to spend it and then we get reimbursed.
Oh, is that how it works?
Yeah.
Okay.
We have.
Are you good at spending?
Are we good at spending?
You don't want to leave money on the table. I mean,
We don't leave money on the
Oh,
table.
okay.
We're pretty, I would say for an organization like ours, we're pretty conservative. If you look at a nonprofit, nonprofits, usually they're 75% or 80% is our staff.
Oh, and you can't have that.
Ours is not.
No, I can see that.
Ours goes right, ours, I would say 50% is personnel and administration, and the rest of it goes right into conservation work on the ground.
So, all right, so you got 2 million from the Environmental Protection Fund.
Right? So where's the rest come from? Right?
And 800,000 from donations, or?
Well, you have money from the landfill mitigation. That's a
Okay.
requirement of the permit from the state. We have 3 endowments, one of which we have sponsorship by Trustco Bank. Trustco is the primary sponsor of the Discovery Center. We do have private donations, and we have other grants, federal grants, state grants for specific projects.
How much, when people just, you have a collection box, I'm
Right.
sure, and people can drop in
Right.
$1 or $2 or whatever.
Right.
How much does that bring in?
20,000,
It's not bad.
22,000.
I wish I had the collection
Yeah,
box
yeah,
that could
yeah.
bring in 20,000.
Michael, we have the collection box right here, then we'll hit on.
Well, if you had a 3,200 acre nature preserve, and,
It might work.
Yeah.
and I mean, it's a pretty big, it's a big draw as a community resource.
Yeah.
Especially
How
for,
many
for
visitors
families.
a year?
75 to 100,000.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah.
Now you're going to get a lot more. Rabbi Simon has 13 kids.
13.
They don't all live here anymore.
Well, that's right. When they
Oh,
come
no.
back to visit,
But now they
can
have
come.
No, I
families, so
will.
it's
I'm
even
going to-
more.
Even
It's
bigger.
spread. It's even
Like
bigger.
I say, you got me excited. I'm going to go down there. But how much, is that part of the money, like you said before, to buy off other properties? Or I know Little Five Rivers, they say someone donated. Because like Mark said, people do love the preserve.
Yep.
And maybe, the kids are off and saying, hey, listen, I want this land preserved forever. I mean, people donate their border
property?
properties. I mean, because I've
Not
heard of
very
that in
often.
Five Rivers,
On occasion, we've had people donate land, but it's not very common.
But you have money to buy them off, or that's?
No, we don't.
So what does the 2 million or 2.8 million
What does it pay for?
pay for? I mean,
It pays for operations at the Discovery Center,
Okay.
maintenance of the preserve, the whole trail system, habitat restoration. Habitat restoration is very expensive.
Is it? Yeah.
Really?
$6,000-7,000 an acre
Really?
for restoration.
So what happens with the salaries for staff? I mean, what is that total?
Staff salaries are probably I should know.
1.4?
I'm out of budgeting.
It's
1.4.
million?
Yeah, I would say with benefits.
That's the health
18 staff.
benefits and stuff. yeah.
18
Oh, yeah.
people, that's 18 people.
18 people, and you probably have, we'd have another 7 or 8 seasonals.
Is it public information to ask you what your salary is, or?
You can look it up on New York, on See Through New York. Sure.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
You can look up all the staff
You want
salaries.
to tell us?
Sure. I'm an M4.
What's the salary level?
The M4 runs from 91 to 118,000.
Okay, so you're about $100,000 range. And
Yeah.
that's important because you're dealing with a $2.8 million budget. I mean,
Right.
you don't want to have some schlub earning $30,000, taking
Well,
care of that.
it's
So-
not necessarily that. It's basically what the market provides for,
Right.
a certain amount of
No,
responsibility.
that's right, exactly. So that's fair. I mean, you're
Yeah.
not saying you're earning $250,000 like Elaine
No.
Caballeros or someone. So
No.
it's like- all right.
I think it's probably more than that.
So I'm looking at pitch pine scrub oak
Yep.
and buffers. And could you explain some of this?
Sure.
Because it's all from your website. So
Sure. What would you like to know specifically?
Well, let's talk about pitch pine scrub oak.
Sure.
What does that mean?
Pitch pine scrub oak, well, that's the habitat. So it's a pine barrens, but specifically, it's a pitch pine scrub oak barrens. So what does that mean?
What's pitch pine? Is that a type of tree?
Pitch pine's a tree.
Okay.
It's a type of tree. It's a pine tree. It's the ones that are all curly and gnarly.
Okay.
And scrub oak, there's 2 types of scrub oak. There's, and those are shrubs in the preserve. So that's the gnarly looking shrubs that you see.
Oh, okay.
So it's called a pitch pine scrub oak barrens. And then from that, it's
I see.
detailed by the other plants that make up the whole ecosystem.
See, I think of oak as a mighty oak.
No, there's
you
scrub
know.
oaks too.
So there's,
So
that's
there's-
why I'm asking.
which are
you,
shrubs,
yeah.
right? And then there's mighty
Mighty
oaks.
shrubs.
You know what we call them? We call them tree oaks.
Tree oaks.
Right. Most
Okay.
people call them oaks, right?
Okay.
So a pitch pine scrub oak barrens is just that's how it's described.
Okay.
Yep.
And what is buffers? What is that?
Buffer. Well,
zone?
that's one of the 4 criteria in the protection plan to create buffers for habitat.
Yeah.
So buffer would be if you're developing property adjacent to the preserve. If you can leave a buffer of undeveloped habitat, it helps soften the impacts of development.
So what's the buffer zone? How wide?
There's nothing defined.
Nothing defined?
No, and we don't define that. That's defined by the municipalities.
Okay.
We don't have it. We're not regulatory.
No, but I'm
So-
just asking what the general distance is
it
on a
could be-
buffer zone. I'm just wondering.
It could be 50 feet or it could be 1,000 feet.
Okay. Just a general idea. That's,
Yeah, it's, you know, one of the things that we try to do is we work with, we don't try to do, we do.
Mm-hmm.
We work with the municipalities and their planning departments to balance conservation, what we're trying to do, with economic development.
Now, what archaeological resources have you found, or archaeological things have you found in the pine bush?
We found a number of points, Native American points, arrowheads, as they're more commonly known. A lot of pieces of clay pipes, clay pots, things like that.
Again, from the Native Americans or maybe from the
Dutch?
1600, yeah, the Dutch, the 1600.
Some of it's from the Dutch. The points are from Native Americans. We've done a lot of archaeological work. Any place that we do habitat work, we do archaeological work first. So if we're
Have you
going to
found any
disturb,
bones from the
No.
from the Ice Age or something? Nothing fancy like that?
Nothing.
Sexy like that?
No. No, nothing sexy like that.
Dinosaur right in the middle of the pine
That's it.
bush. Very nice.
Well, they
So
found the
people
Cohoes
have, I know.
mastodon, you know.
Yeah,
they
that's what I'm
found
saying,
that,
you
so.
can find
it's
Stranger things have
possible.
happened,
Yeah.
right?
What would you want people to know about the pine bush that they might not know about?
What I want them to know, I would want them to know that that people in the capital region have one of the most globally rare habitats in their own backyard, and it's an open space resource for them to enjoy and appreciate.
And what was your surprise when you were an intern way back when, that you looked at this and you were still finding your way around, that surprised you, that was like a wow for you?
That there's so much undeveloped area in the middle of all this development, all this suburban and urban development. You know, I had no idea. You know, when I was pretty fresh out of graduate school, and I had worked for a consultant for about 6 months, and then I came here, hoping that, you know, my 8-week internship would turn into something longer.
And it did?
21, it's pretty good, right? So that was probably it.
That was it. So tell us about you personally. You live in Guilderland or Colony?
No,
or
I live in
Albany,
East
or-
Greenbush. I
Live in
grew
East
up.
Greenbush,
I grew up in Columbia County, Rensselaer County.
I see you married.
Married. Yep.
And, yep.
Married for 22
Kids?
years. No kids.
No kids.
Nope. Nope. Rescue dog.
Uh-huh.
Great Dane, Black Lab mix. Character.
And you went to graduate school? Where'd you go to?
Plattsburgh State.
Okay.
I did my graduate work at a place called the Minor Institute, which is it's a biological and agricultural research institute right by the border in Shazy, New York.
Right, I've
So I
heard of
did
it,
my.
yeah. There's a sign on the Northway for Minor Institute.
That's
but
it.
I never knew I knew a Judge Minor from Columbia County,
Yeah.
but I never knew.
Well, Minor Institute, the guy who started it,
Yeah.
he made millions. He created the shock-absorbing coupler between trains.
Oh, okay.
So then he used a lot of his money to create this research institute.
Oh, that's great.
So I did my graduate work there, housed out of there, and I was a teaching assistant there, but did research in a jack pine barrens. So this is a pitch pine barrens.
Yep.
That's a jack pine barrens. And jack pine are found primarily way north into Canada, and it's at the southernmost extent, and it's another rare habitat.
Wow.
So
you
I
had
that
a
was
lot
my
of experience, yeah.
yeah. I mean, technically, before I became an administrator, 13 years ago, 14
Right.
years ago, I like to think of myself as a plant ecologist.
Oh. And when you go on trips
Yep.
with your wife, do you take her to barren or push pine areas?
Not very
around?
often, no.
You go to the beaches, get away from.
Yes, I'll give you an example. We were in Florida in November for vacation, and she happily sits on the beach and she reads,
Yeah.
and I fish.
Oh, okay.
All right. You know, Chris, I got excited about the pine bush, and it's really what you're saying is right under our noses, and that there's something very valuable here. And I didn't know about it, and I'm sure a lot of our viewers didn't know about it either. So opening up their minds and their hearts, and get a few more visitors
That's
this
great.
year. Chris, thank you very much. Continue with your good work of preserving the nature that God has given us, and it shouldn't be bricked over and cemented over, and it's something to enjoy for all generations.
Great.
Thanks for
Thank you,
coming.
Rebbe. Thanks, Mark.